My name is Eric Van Horn. I bought my first franchise in my 20s, and since then, I've owned 6 brands with 25 stores in 8 states. I've also helped 1,000 people find the right franchise for them. People like us who are not cut out for the 9 to 5 and like to work smarter, not harder. How do we find the right franchise, buy it, grow it, sell it, and how do we do it in a way to own the business without it owning us? Those are the questions, and I'm on a mission to give you the answers. Welcome to Franchise Secrets. Welcome to the Franchise Secrets podcast with your host, Eric Van Horn, and today's guest is Ryan Casey. Ryan used to be with Cutco and is with Orangetheory Fitness right now. He's one of the best sales guys that I know, and not just himself, but teaching people how to sell, teaching your team how to sell. So it is not just built around one person, one personality in your business that's getting most of the things done and really making your business successful because of one person. So Ryan, I'm super excited to have you on the podcast today. Why don't you go back to the Cutco days and how you got started?
Yeah, I started as a young kid right out of high school. Football season was over. I was slacking off for a few weeks. Parents told me to go get a job. Went to this interview, came back. I guess I should say that I was an extremely, extremely shy person. So I go to this job interview. I actually made it through the interview. It's my first real interview, and I botched all of that too, but I got the job. And I came home and I told my parents, I'm like, hey, guess what? I got a job. And they're like, oh, that's great. What are you doing? I'm like, I'm going to sell knives in people's houses. And still to this day, I've never seen my dad laugh so hard, just because he didn't think there was any way the shy kid is going to be able to go talk to people and sell something.
So have you always been shy? And was that something that you chose as a challenge to do? Or was that just, something that you had on a whim decided to do it?
Well, I was always shy, and I think I was just more excited about selling and accomplishing something. And I liked the recognition. The only thing I'd really done before was mowing lawns. And nobody gave me trophies or promotions or pay raises because I mowed a certain amount of lawns. And so I liked that you got paid for your performance. So that was something that really attracted to me. And it was just more important than me being shy. Like that, it helped me get over that.
So anybody that's not familiar with Cutco, tell them what Cutco is. And tell them some of the people that they might recognize that have come out of Cutco.
Cutco Cutlery has been around since 1949. And at its core, it's selling knives, right? But what it really is, it's about developing young people. So as managers, we work with primarily college students, and we teach them skills like time management, communication skills. I mean, I spent more than half my life in Cutco. I really grew up through there, and I had some great mentors. And some people you might know, Hal Elrod, the Miracle Morning author, John Vroman, Front Row Foundation, Front Row Dads, Justin Donald, lifestyle investor, John Rulin, Giftology. There's you could just go on and on with Cutco alumni that have done really big things.
Yeah, and they're all part of our world of friends and great guys. Justin has been on this podcast, and so has John Rulin with Giftology. I'd love to get Hal Elrod on here to talk about some Miracle Morning stuff. He's not an easy guy to get, though, is he?
No, he's a busy guy, and he's very good at time blocking. His family's really important. You'll see all this Facebook posts about time with his kids. So you got to book him way in advance, I think.
He's a real deal, though. I spent some time with him, and I don't know him very well at all. You know him a lot better than I do, but he's the real deal.
So maybe that 4 a.m. podcast, you could get him on there.
That's right. That won't be easy. Okay. Give me the quick Cutco story, kind of what you did there for 20 plus years. Then I want to dive into Orangetheory. I want to get into the sales. I want to get in how do we teach people sales. And really what we're going to be doing is we're going to get into some of this stuff now to give some tactical, practical advice in this podcast. But we're also doing a longer series on Facebook, at least 5 hours of content that you and I are going to do together. So this is a preview for that, but we want to get some actionable things out there for people to help them with their teams, because I have people on my team that are scared of selling and they don't understand what selling is. So I want to get in that stuff. But before we do that, Ryan, take us into the story of Cutco transitioning into Orangetheory.
Long story short, I was pretty terrible as an Arab, just getting over shyness and learning sales. That would be really the first time I was in sales. But I was able to get some good mentors and really just focused on learning and getting better every day. And that first year, I ended up making about $40,000 as an 18-year-old. And I'm like, this is crazy. And
so a lot of lawns that you could have been mowing.
That would have taken many lawns. So I'm like, well, I'm definitely doing this for college. This would be stupid not to do this after college. My buddies are making $5 an hour back then. And so I went through college and I was a business major, and they had an opportunity where you could run your own office for the summer. I'm like, well, if I'm going to be a business major and they're going to help support me run my own business, they even give you money. Where in franchise, you have to pay for the model. They actually give you money to do that, which I'm like, well, that's a no-brainer for me. Nobody else is going to give a 20-year-old, a few grand to help start a business. So we did that, and that's where things really took off. We finished, I think, number 3 out of 200 some offices. We did about $400,000 in a summer, and then the next summer before I graduated, I went back and did it again. We did over $500,000. We just missed the all-time record. We were a little bit short of that. It was just so great seeing all these kids that were in the same situation I was, like this young, shy kid. And then by the end of the summer, they're standing up in front of 30 or 40 people giving tips at the team meeting and talking. Melanie Walters, I still talk about her first week. She cried literally 9 out of her 10 first days. She's like, my people just don't buy. My people just don't buy. End of the summer, she had sold 10 grand or made 10 grand, sold 30 grand. She came back, was an assistant manager. She was running interviews and doing all these things. And just to see that transformation in somebody in such a short time was so cool. That's what really got addicting for me. And so that's when I decided to do that right after college. And I was a manager for 18, 19 years. And the last 10 years of that or so was a division manager where I was training other managers, not just sales reps.
And that's why we're talking about sales, because you just didn't do it, you trained. And I'd go back to that story with, was it Melanie?
Yeah, Melanie.
And I think if anyone out there listening to this is like me, we have that person working for us. We have that Melanie that we know, like, they just need to get over something in their head, or there's something that just needs to change, and they're realize they're actually helping people, and they're actually, they can sell, and they just have some type of like roadblock in their mind, or they just haven't been taught how to do it the right way, or they just, whatever it is. So like, what are some of the biggest things that you've seen people overcome? Is it mindset? What are the things that take an average person or a shy person or someone that doesn't like sales to all of a sudden go to realizing that they have the capacity to do it and they're actually good at it?
There's a variety of different things, but most of it comes down to something in mindset. One thing you probably see as a franchisee, you hire these people, they're super bubbly and outgoing. They're not shy at all. They come into a room and they're friends with everybody immediately. You're like, this is the perfect salesperson. And then they can't sell to save their life.
Yep.
And with them, it's getting them to see like they're not ruining that relationship by offering the order, right? They're afraid to ask for the order. They're afraid to sell. They'll talk up your product. They'll connect with the person. But when it comes down to selling, they think that's going to hurt the relationship. And that's really deeper down. That's their view of sales, right?
Yeah.
So this bad view of sales where it's almost like I see sales as I am asking them I'm taking their money, right? That's as bad as it can come across for some people. So trying to work with that, other people, it's shyness, getting them to build a rapport. Like they're like, hey, I can ask for org, I can close, but you're not building a relationship of trust before. So there's just a few strategic things. I don't think sales is a skill. I think sales is a set of different skills that when put together in the right format is when you end up seeing the success.
So it's really identifying where the breakdown is for them and then helping them get through that. Let's get in. So Orangetheory, give us the quick down and dirty on Orangetheory, how long you've been in it. Give us a sense of like how your stores are doing or your studios. And then did you have any challenges when you were selling, pre-selling? And then I want to get into the meat of what we're going to talk about today right after that.
I never liked working out. I didn't like gyms, wouldn't go there. And so hurt my shoulder, couldn't do it, get the flyer. I go into Orangetheory, and it was great. Cut a bunch of weight in the first 6 weeks. And then I saw them open their second location. And this is the fall of 2014. I was like, that's basically what I do with Cutco is I teach managers to open up locations and I work through them. So got into it, and we went in, I talked my parents out of coming out of retirement and helping out. And my mom's awesome on the admin side. My dad's great with facility maintenance and all sorts of stuff with that in the construction. He was so valuable there. And then we opened up. I think we were the 4th studio to open in Washington. Orangetheory has amazing programs. Back then, early 2015 or so, the sales, it was all right. There was some stuff.
See, that's so refreshing to hear. Everybody thinks that I know a lot of Orangetheory franchisees, and this is absolutely true. And everyone thinks like, oh, all you have to do is just put on your sign, and people with Orangetheory have always just come in droves. Even you have to work at it. And back early on, they didn't have that. It really came from a lot of franchisees helping the franchisor get better at sales.
Now they have all these different modules and Orange University and things you can do. And back then they didn't have that type of stuff, but that's what my background was. And I think the sales was one thing, and kind of helping our sales associates. I sat through pre-sales, our first one, and I would sit there and watch and then coach and give them advice and stuff for the first couple months. But the other thing I noticed, which I was being new to the fitness industry, was the retention. I remember looking at resumes and seeing somebody who's been in fitness for 2 years and they've worked at 9 different places. I'm like, how does that happen? I don't understand how somebody goes from one, this being for somebody who is 20 years at one job, so a little skewed viewpoint. But sales is one of those big things where if people have to sell, they need to be comfortable with it. And if they're comfortable with it, they're going to stick around longer. So I think that's one of the big things for success with our Orangetheories is we've done really good with retention. Our first studio has now been open for over 4 years. That opened with 712, I believe, for our pre-sales. Our second studio has been open for 2 years. That was just a little short. That was like 685 pre-sales. But that one opened in April, and by the end of the year, we were over 1,000 members. The first one that's been open 4 years, in 4 years up until COVID, every month, year over year, we had grown for 4 years. So every March was bigger than the March before for 4 years, except for one little blip in February when we had Snowmageddon up here in Washington.
Yeah, that'll make it. So net with attrition and bringing new people in, you were always ahead.
Oh yeah, from day one. Like our first one basically funded our second one.
And that goes into what we're going to talk about towards the end is, you get the sale, you get somebody in, but then it's about keeping them. And there's other objectives that you have to be able to grow a business. And that we want to get into that as well. So awesome, man. Congratulations on your success there. And then I've been in business with my parents too. And it's funny how that relationship starts to change. And early on, for me at least, you got into it as you were more mature, but they helped me get into business and they did it for me. And then all of a sudden, at some point, things change and like I'm educating them, I'm helping them. And they look to me like, Eric, can you help us with this stuff? And can you help us with that? I'm not in business with them anymore, but something definitely changed. And I have absolutely loved being business partners with my mom and dad. How about you?
Yeah, I think I'm spoiled, and it's any business partners I get in the future, it's going to be tough. At first, there were some things. My dad is Mr. Conservative with everything. So when it wasn't quite proven yet, when there wasn't a certainty that like, hey, this is going to be successful and we're not going to lose our shorts, definitely some hesitation and some things. My sales skills came in handy there. Once we were up and running, it was off to the races, and they've been, super happy with it ever since.
That's awesome. Let's get into the reason that we're here today. And it's because you and I were talking, and I recognize, you were a successful Orangetheory guy, Cutco, and I knew what that meant. And then I know the challenge that is in franchising today. Same challenge that Orangetheory had early on. Franchisors, for the most part, this is not a blanket statement, but for the most part, don't have really good consumer-facing sales processes for their franchisees. A lot of them have really good sales process to get franchisees, but it stops there, and they're not really that helpful to the franchisee getting customers in, even though they might think they are. But the proof's in the numbers. And so I wanted to, and I've been there. I've been with franchises that have had strong sales processes and that have had weak sales processes. And it's frustrated me. And even though I know how to sell and I know how to help people, I know how to handle objections. And as a business owner, I am not at the point where I want to get in there and solve all of these problems. And so I figured if you and I could get together and do a training for franchisees, for their managers, for their salespeople, we could really make an impact. And so that's when you and I started talking a few months ago about having a really robust, expensive course to help people do that. And then COVID hit, and we're like, people don't want to spend the money on this stuff. And even if they did, we want to be able to give more. So that's when we decided to do more of a really easy way for franchisees to give something to their management team to give something to their salespeople on the ground that hate selling and they don't even know why. So the franchisee didn't have to train them, but we could help train them. And guys, here's the thing too. When your staff, this is human nature. When we hear something from somebody else versus just our franchisor, the owner, we tend to listen more. And so we're hopeful that your staff, your salespeople out there, your managers, your team will listen to us more than they might listen to you. And you can come in and reinforce that. And we have a question about some conversion rates. And so we'll get that to conversion rates and things like that as well, because that's really important. That's the reason. That's the why behind all of this. Make sure if you're listening to this on just a regular podcast, not in part of the Franchise Tribe Facebook group, get a part of the Franchise Tribe. It's a free Facebook group that I put together. Ryan's in it. And you just go to franchisetribe.com and then you fill out a couple of questions. And one of them is, what franchise are you a part of? Because you need to be a franchisee to get a part of this. But there's over 600 franchisees in the tribe, and we're just there helping each other. One quick thing, you have to have a good attitude. You have to be a giver and not a taker, and because that's what the tribe is all about. And that's where you'll get access to things like this and live podcasts. So, Ryan, we're starting our course, Chapter 1. What would we talk about?
Well, I think first thing, it comes down to rapport. We're going to be talking with people about what their goals are. Some of those are sensitive subjects. And if there's not a level of trust there, then you're not going to get great information. And even before that, I think that's the first objective for a sales rep. But I think as an owner or manager or whoever's doing the training, you need to go a step back further. And when you're coaching your people, what is the objective? Because if the objective is just to make a sale, you're naturally going to have a lot of hesitancy in your salespeople. They're not going to be as on board with that versus if your objective is to create a community around your business process, right? Or, for ours, it's to create a long-term member as part of our community and help them hit their goals.
Yeah, that's important because I was in the weight loss industry and the team on the ground selling hated to have people to actually give them money to get the results that they needed to get because that's what they saw it as. My goal is to get money. And no, that's not the goal. And until they started to realize that it was something bigger than that, did they realize like the outcome is what they were selling versus just trying to get a dollar? It made all the difference in the world.
If the manager isn't really spending some time, you can't just say it once, say, hey, here's our goal. Like that has to be a culture. That has to be something that's consistently talked about where it's, hey, our goal is to create long-term members who are not only hitting their initial goal, but then setting new goals and consistently improving. Like our LLC name is Kaizen Culture. Kaizen's constant, never-ending improvement. And that's what we want, a culture of constant, never-ending improvement. And we talk about that. And so that way, when we have sales reps, maybe they sell a membership that they're coming in once a week. They sell like the bottom membership. And I say, okay, well, that's okay. But what was their goal? Well, their goal is to lose all this. Okay, so is that membership in alignment with what their goal is? They're like, well, no. So are you really selling the price, or are you selling, to hit your overall accomplishment? And they're selling the price in that circumstance, at least. So having those conversations, I think, is really important. So that's the first thing from the owner or manager said is, what is the main objective? And it should be something that your people are fired up to rally around. Yeah, that sounds awesome. I want to build a community. I want to help people hit their goals. I can get some conviction behind that.
Did everyone that you hired, did you have people that you had to teach them this and train them on this? Or did everyone just come ready to sell and just crush it?
No, it's like when a fitness company that doesn't, I think for most franchises, like if you have somebody who's selling beauty services or fitness stuff, they don't come there because they love to sell. They're like, you know what? Yep. I love selling. I'm going to go sell some lashes. Or I love selling. I want to go sell some fitness memberships. Yep. They're like, I love beauty industry. I want to work in the beauty industry. Yep. I love fitness. I want to work in the fitness industry. If I have to sell, it lets me be a part of that industry. So I'll deal with it. And that's the attitude you get. So sales is going to be something that if you want to keep them around, you got to get them comfortable. And if you do it right, you can get them where they actually enjoy it. It's a fun process.
100%. So we got the big picture. We got the why. We've got them understanding that. It becomes part of the culture, becomes part of of everything that the franchise or your location is actually about, how do you teach them to build rapport?
Okay, rapport is, in a few words as possible, is off self on purpose. Right. And one of my mentors taught me that. And being a shy person, that really hit home with me, where I'm meeting this person, I'm nervous. Am I thinking, what are they judging me? And it was all about me. And
Mm-hmm.
when I took the focus off me and you put it on the person, right? Let me just focus on this person. Let me make them feel comfortable. Let me learn a little bit about their story. Let me learn a little bit of why they're there. And if you're focused on the other person, then all those nerves kind of go away.
Oh yeah, for sure. What are some of the big objections that the challenge that you run into with people building rapport? What gets them stuck in that? What are some of the sticking points? Why
Uh,
would they not want to do that?
Before, I think they don't see the value in it. They don't want to waste people's time, and in some cases you don't have time. Like, they come in and it's a quick interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Rapport doesn't need, when we were in Cutco, you go sit and you're in their living room, you sit and chit chat for 5 minutes, up to, some people would talk your ear off. You're there for an hour before you get started, and in most cases you don't have time to do that.
That's a great point. Then that's real life. Most of the time, you don't have time to do that. So keep
Oh,
going.
yeah, Orange Theory, we have them set. They come in early. We go over their sheets and you talk about their goals. So you have a little bit of time built in, but people have to learn how to build rapport quickly. So, how to give a quick compliment, how to do something where you can build at least some rapport. You don't know their life story or anything, but
Mm-hmm.
create some kind of connection within the first 10 to 30 seconds by finding something to compliment about them, finding a question to follow up with. There's multiple ways you can do that, but you have to teach the spectrum, know what your business model is. Do they have 30 seconds to build a rapport, or do they have a few minutes or more, right? And then coach your people on the time frame that's going to be typically allowed.
If you had to say, what are some of the misconceptions about rapport? What is it or what isn't it, and or misconceptions?
Yeah, rapport is a relationship of trust. Mutual affinity is right. I always remember hearing where both sides like each other. Rapport is not just asking how somebody's doing. And I think that's when it's not taught well. It's like, hey, get to know your person. So they're like, how are you doing? Oh, wow, it's hot outside again. The weather is like the least flattering thing you could ever talk about. I think Oscar Wilde has a quote about it where it's like, that's the worst thing you could ever talk to somebody about. It means there's nothing interesting about you more than that's the same
One of
thing.
the things, like in my consulting business where I help people buy find good franchises to buy, the question that I started, and a lot of you out there, if I help you find franchises to buy, my question initially is, who are you, Ryan? What things in life, events, things that have happened, mentors, key things have helped shape you and mold you into who you are today? And people are thrown back by that question. I started asking that question because I got bored of just going through the motions with people. And once I did that, and I got some stories back that were just absolutely amazing, it just helped me understand who they are. And so them telling me a story, and then me, whenever you ask somebody something, everyone's talking, there's an element of rapport by the person talking. And then for me, I get to know them. I get to really know them. So when they say I'm a hard worker, but it's anchored by the context of they grew up as an immigrant family and watched their mom and dad hustle, and really what hustling meant to them was very different than the average person, what they think it means. I'm like, you are a hard worker. I absolutely get it. So now, just through that question, me asking that question, them giving me their response, like there's a level of a relationship that we didn't have before because they shared something vulnerable and I heard it. I love things like that. In the franchise world, we don't get a chance to ask questions like that and to really build that type of rapport, at least initially, early on. As you get further on in the relationship, we all have these stories of where we really get to know our customers and really more than that, just our staff, and then we get to know who they really are.
And that's one thing of most people in sales will tell you should build rapport first. But then what ends up happening is sales reps like, okay, now it's time to build rapport. And then once they turn it on, it's not like a faucet where you turn it on and off and now I go to the next process. Rapport is continually built through the whole process. So learning to keep asking those questions and things, I think, is important.
We're going to spend a good amount of time on rapport, how to do it, the pitfalls and what to avoid and how to do it the right way and how to do it quickly. All of that type of stuff we'll cover in that Facebook training that we're going to do. What's next?
After rapport, then it's really about digging in and asking the right questions, getting to know your people. Too often people are like, okay, let me get to know you. If they built rapport, then it's like, here's my stuff. Here's what we get. They want to push all their stuff on them right now versus like, hey, let me get to know you. What are your needs? Like real sales is finding the person's need or want and then delivering it. That's it. And so
That's business. There's a problem and there's a solution.
but if you're not taking time to find that, then you're losing customers.
Or worse, you just assume what you think it is.
There's a lot of different ways you can get into the questions but really what you're looking for the questions is to set up the next phase, which is when you start building value and educating on them.
You need to ask the right questions in order to go to really the third stage or the third step in what we're going to be teaching, which is education and really asking for the sale. But if you don't have that set up correctly, asking the right questions, you're going to lose the sale. You're going to turn off the customer. You're not going to do things right. And may as well just let them out the door and start over with the next one because you didn't listen. You might have asked questions, but you didn't listen. You might have asked the right questions. You didn't listen, So you have to ask the right questions and listen. And so you can know what you need to do next. So what are some examples of right and wrong questions?
I think from the trainer's perspective, it's important your salespeople know the why behind the question. Because you can give them a intake form to fill out that has questions on it. But if they're just blindly going through that, they don't understand the why. So a few of the whys are, one is, are you handling objections before they happen? And then are you listening to if you're still getting a consistent objection that's specific, you got to find a way to ask a question before that comes up to help handle that before. So that's one big one. And so in every industry, let's say for fitness for industry, it's, I don't have time. Sales rep keeps hearing that. Then, you show them the schedule before. He's like, here's our schedule. There's lots of different times. When do you think you would work out the most? And they circle a bunch of the times. Later, that person's not going to say, I don't have time, because you just be like, hold up the sheet. And you're like, well, you have 20 of them circled here. You could fit in 4. So handling objections before they happen. And then also is just guiding what that person values. So people buy for different reasons. Some people buy because it's the best. Some people buy because it's practical. Some people buy because their other friends have bought it and they want to be in the crowd, right? Asking some of those questions to see what are some of the reasons they're there, the things that are important to them. Because when you get to the next phase, if you tell them a million reasons why your business or service is awesome, and they're only really there for 4, it's not going to sound like it's a great fit. But if you listen and you say, these are the biggest things about our business, and you're saying those because those are the biggest things they said, and they're like, this business was created just for me.
Yep.
Right? That's exactly what you want.
Yep. That makes perfect sense. It's really easy when you get into it, but you have to know this for your particular franchise and your particular industry. And you've done it in fitness. You've done it in a physical product. And I've done it in a lot of different ways with, like I've sold hundreds of franchises as a franchise development rep. And then as a franchise consultant, help a lot of people look at different brands. It's super interesting that it's still a big challenge for franchisees to really pick the right people and set everything up correctly. And the franchisors don't do it. I still don't know why franchisors don't spend a few $100,000, have someone like you come in, create a sales process for them. So that's essentially what we're going to do. This thing that we're going to do, you and I on Facebook, is going to be interactive with people to help your roadblocks and the things that you're running into in your franchise. We're going to help solve those things to help you become the Orangetheory of your industry, or have your gym or your weight loss or your beauty industry franchise or your service-based franchise to be able to help your team sell. So we've talked about rapport, asking the right questions, which is really a setup for educating and really asking for the order, asking for the sale, right? Anything else to comment on that before we go into what's next?
I'll tell you, and this might sound like blasphemy for somebody who's in sales, but when I'm giving kind of my keys to our salespeople, asking for the order is not one of the keys. It happens, right? And don't get me wrong, I teach it. First big 3 keys are rapport, and if you build trust, then they're gonna give you good answers on those questions. If you're trying to get good answers on questions without trust, it's not going to work. So then you ask the questions. Now you know what they value, and the next phase is just education, and you educate them on. and you're educating on the things that they want, but it's more on it's all based for the client, right? It's not like, here's where you tell them about why our stuff's so awesome. It's no, now it's time to educate the person, always keeping the customer's perspective in mind as you're teaching.
That's good. That's good.
Now, from that point, one of the things I always ask you guys, if you built good rapport, you asked them the questions, you gave everything, let's just say the product was free. Would anybody not take it? Of course not. They all want it, right? So at that point, if there's something that they don't want, then you have to problem solve. And what problem solving is in the sales world, objection handling, right? But if you're teaching somebody who doesn't like sales, here's how we're going to handle objections.
Oh my gosh, they're going to run.
Be handled, right? And the customer doesn't want to be handled, and your sales rep doesn't want to handle them, right? They don't want. I'm like, I don't want to do anything to deal with this. Just come back later, right?
Guys, a lot of this is like what we're going to be doing is reframing sales to your team. If you're having issues with your team pushing back on sales, you might need to reframe some things that you're doing as a franchisee or your sales manager is doing. Like what Ryan just said, objection handling. Nobody wants to be handled. So once we get into this, we're going to be breaking down the little nuances and the things that really make a difference. Because you can read the top 10 ways to sell. You can have, an hour-long podcast on this, but the devil's in the details, and it's all in the nuance and whatnot. So we wanted to give you a taste of what's to come. So go ahead and continue on handling objections.
Well, I want to touch just real quick on the challenge. I was really excited when we shifted from a course to the challenge because it's going to be interactive, and we can get in and have those specific questions for your business, kind of guide you through some questions and your salespeople. So salespeople need to talk and interact, right?
100%.
To a lecture, that's not going to be effective. All right. So handling objections and handling objections is really just about listening and problem solving. What are they saying? And then solve the problem, right? But a lot of times we get into these blanket, here's my rebuttal book, boiler room, right? and it's just, as soon as the customer gives an objection, the person's like, I know the answer to that. That's not what customers want. They don't want the answer. They want to be heard. And teaching people kind of the philosophy about it, it's most salespeople don't have a good view of sales is this is the part where I don't take no for an answer versus this is where I listen and help my client. And so shifting that mindset, and really it's about teaching them how to switch some of their questions up to make it comfortable for them, where it's like, oh, I can ask those questions to really discern what the real problem is here. That I feel comfortable with that. And now you're accomplishing, sales. You're helping the customer problem solve.
Let's go to something real quick, because what do you hire for? Your salespeople on the ground interacting with customers. What do you hire for? Is it that salesperson that is like, I heard you talk about the sales guy and they're like, I'm ready, blah, blah, blah. And then, then someone that's deathly afraid of sales, but has, a really good personality. Like who, and we're going to get into this in the challenge, but how do you hire? What are you looking for?
It's funny because being new to the fitness industry when we started, I'm like, oh, I want somebody with fitness experience. And we've had a couple people come through. They're like, Biggs box, I was a closer, I sold. And some of them just didn't know how to sell anything. But the others, they were too just like, I want to close. That was their thing. And some people love that. It's not very many people, but it rubs a lot of people the wrong way. That wasn't in alignment with what we were trying to accomplish overall. And it also is tough for them to coexist with the other salespeople, right? We want all of our people working together as a team, not fighting over for that type of stuff. So I found it's a little tougher to switch those really aggressive people and have them tone it down than to teach somebody who's a little shy, has a little misconception about sales. But if you reframe it and you show them what it really is, for them to be able to step up. So I look for somebody who's personable, somebody who members are going to like, somebody who is easy to build rapport with, right? And big time is coachable. I love athletes, man. I love working with athletes. The longer they've been an athlete, especially if they were, those captains or whatever, where they showed leadership, they showed they're coachable. If somebody can listen and learn, I'm all about it. We can teach all the other stuff.
We had a question that came up, and I want to get into Brandy's question as well. But Steve said, besides Orangetheory, what else have you seen as good sales processes? Maybe not fitness related. So this is, kind of going back to my point earlier, a lot of franchisors don't have really good sales processes. Early on at Liberty Tax, we didn't have a sales process until the franchisor hired somebody to come in, spend basically 9 months developing a sales process for all of their franchisees. He's a buddy of mine, a good friend of mine. He's a franchisor now. He developed a sales process, and franchisors need to bring in somebody specifically that knows sales, and it's their job to help their franchisees sell. At Orangetheory, Ryan, did they have someone eventually that came in that kind of focused on consumer facing sales?
Yeah. Manny was there for sales for a long time now. He has his own franchise, and he was great. And they grew. And don't get me wrong, they had their process down.
Mhm.
This is a process, and I think that's where the disconnect is. From the franchisor level, they're like, "Here's the sales process. This works. Go teach it to your people." And now you have these franchisees or managers, studio managers, whoever, general managers that are now teaching it, and they're just teaching the process without any of the mindset, the framing, working with the people, coming from your sales person's perspective and point of view.
That's the truth of it. There's very few franchisors that have really strong sales processes that are taught well and reinforced over and over. It's part of their training system. There's very few of them, and that's why we brought Ryan in from. He's got this other aspect of Cutco. There's other companies. There's a lot of other companies out there that are really good. Look at Enterprise Rent a Car. Those guys are good with their sales processes. There's a number of good examples out there, but in franchising, there's not a lot. That's why we're doing this, Steve. That's why we're doing this, man. We're going to go on to the kind of the fifth and final thing that we're going to be talking about in our challenge related to sales. Then I want to get to Brandy's question just on kind of numbers, KPIs, attrition, all of that stuff. So what's next after problem solving, objection cycle, et cetera?
After problem solving, the sale should be made. And that's where a lot of people stop.
Bam. It should be made. That's it.
So the sale is made right there. And so for most people are like, mission accomplished,
Yep.
We're all done. Remember, that's not our goal, is to make a sale. Our goal is to create a long-term member. We want a raving fan. We want somebody who's going to be an active part of our community. We have, I don't know what it is, 700 plus people in each of our Facebook groups they are active about our studios, And so then the final step I teach is to reassure. It's the difference between going to fast food and ordering, and they say that's $7.29, and going to a restaurant where you place your order and they say, that's an excellent choice. You're going to love that. And so reaffirm how that's going to fit with their goals. And along with reassure, I would say help bridge them to what your objective is, whether that's getting them into the Facebook group, introducing them to another member that, in that class or somebody like that. Reassure, make them feel great about the sale. They should leave not thinking like, was that the right decision? But I can't
no buyer's remorse.
Yeah, no, we have none of that. And then also help bridge, whether that's, are you giving them an opportunity to give referrals? Are you putting them in your community? Making it as easy as possible for them to get integrated to your whatever you're building with your business there.
So we'll dive into this. This is how you keep members, and this is the challenge in a lot of industries, right? Beauty and fitness and all of them, where it's just it's easy to lose customers, and you're always having to refill. Brandy, our friend Brandy, had a question. She said, "What are your expectations and targets on conversion rates?" And I'll say this. It depends where the leads are coming from. We all know this. We all know the issues with it, Brandy. So I'm not insulting your intelligence because I know you and you're super smart. I'm setting this up for everybody. Facebook leads come in, versus referral versus a walk-in versus, so there's so many different things. And the point of this is really comparing studio number 1 to studio number 2 and comparing across how you talk about your leads and your sources. What's your process with that? What are your conversion rates, and how do you look at that? And then how do you compare that against the benchmark of other people in your franchise, or do you?
I don't have a lot of good information on the other franchises, what their numbers
Which
are.
that in itself is important, because you don't know what that is. You only know what's coming in, how you handle it, and you just got to get better at what you're doing. And I think that's a very fair answer, and it's accurate. So
yeah, we have some owners that we stay in contact with, that we have our circle that we talk and share numbers and things. But for me, what I'm looking at is a first time intro for at least Orangetheory, first time intro, cold lead. They're not a walk-in saying, I want to buy, walking up those percent obviously is 50% is my minimum, right? If somebody's below 50, that studio manager is focusing energy on them and stuff, but it should be 50 to 60% on there. But when you combine that with, sometimes we'll give a second class if for some reason they just didn't get it. Now, careful, you don't want them to lean on that crutch too bad.
Oh, that's important right there. Lots of crutches out there for salespeople. And we are going, just hit me, Ryan. We've got to talk about that because that's kind of like, I hate that when they use all of these different crutches. Now it becomes the crutches are part of their sales process. So keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah. Well, let me finish the numbers and I'll get to the crutch thing. Is overall, we want to look at over 70% closing, right? Between walk-ins, people had a second visit. They should be between 70 and 80%. So every person that comes in, we need to have 70, 80% of them closed. First time intro, 55% is where we look at our best people are 60 plus. And if somebody's having a bad week or whatever, then they're below 50. And that's when we spend a little energy on it. And, I look over that every week, go over the studio manager. Hey, what conversations need to happen? Awesome. But that's something we monitor. For the crutches, there's two parts to that. If you give your people a way out, they'll tend to find it and take it. And then the second thing is that goes all the way back to the beginning where what's the main objective? Because if it's just selling, they're much more likely to use those crutches versus is this fitting building a long-term membership, right? I think that's an important piece to that.
So net, we just wanted to give you, we were just going to do the sales challenge but then we're like, there's more people that need to know about this. We wanted to get some share with everyone kind of really what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be diving into each of these every day. So each one of these 5 things every day, live in Facebook, live in Zoom, and not in the tribe. It'll be in a different group. So if you're interested, just comment in here. Let us know what we can do. Let us know how we can help you. Let us know what questions you have, even within this, because this is going to, like I said, it's going to be very interactive. And this is something that's just missing. And back to Steve's question, something that's missing in franchising. And so this will be the first of probably several things that Ryan and I will be doing. If you are listening to this and you want to know more about franchise consumer sales, like helping your franchise grow as a franchisee, then jump into the franchise tribe, drop me a private note message in there. Say, hey, Eric, where can I find this training? Because by the time you listen to this, we might have already had this and there might be enough interest to get a second challenge going. But it'll be very, very inexpensive and it's going to be very good information. We look forward to getting to know all of you in that challenge. Ryan, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate who you are as a husband, and as a father, and a friend. And I'm so glad you are in the community to give. So any last bits of wisdom for anybody?
I'm just excited for the challenge. Get your people in there. It's going to be fun. And we're not just, at first we're looking at here's how you train, but we want to get in with everybody, salespeople, and make it fun and make it kind of a group experience where you can go through that with your people. I think it'll be a blast.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.